It is time for Answer the Question. I have a series of hard-hitting, provocative questions from Mr. Domonique Foxworth, and whether he's ready or not, he's going to have to answer them, and here's the first one. Does this Kansas City Chiefs offense right now have enough for Patrick Mahomes to do something no one has done in the Super Bowl era, and that is pull off a three-peat?
I mean, I think they absolutely do. The questions are the new receivers, Hollywood Brown, and then the rookie they got, the speedster, are they going to fit into this offense well? It doesn't seem like it's been easy for receivers to assimilate into a system with the greatest quarterback of all time, but I think speed is going to help. The only question that's unanswered right now is, will they be able to hold up at left tackle with a revolving door, potential revolving door there? They did last year. There's no reason to believe that this team is going to take a step back.
Yeah, the rookie you're talking about right there is Xavier Worthy, and he ran the fastest 40 in the history of the NFL Combine. So they literally added a weapon that is faster than Tyreek Hill. Doesn't mean he's better than Tyreek Hill, but he's faster than Tyreek Hill. All right, next question. This is a tough one. Has Josh Allen missed his Super Bowl window?
No, I think Josh Allen is a lot like Patrick Mahomes and a lot like Lamar Jackson. If he's there, the window is open. He's that good a player. And I do think that we have to take into consideration what they did last year. That run they went on the end of the season was similar to the Ross they have now. They had a lot of injuries on defense. And they still found a way to play defense. I've developed a great amount of respect for that coaching staff and that front office for the way that they handled a tough season last year and the way that they're going into this season. I suspect that their Super Bowl window is still going to be open.
I'm with you. Look, as long as he's there, then their Super Bowl window is theoretically open. But there are going to be little moments where they take a step back, and this might be
We thought the
one
same
of
thing
those
about
seasons.
Patrick Mahomes.
Yes, and Mahomes is just that good.
Fair point.
We'll see if Allen can do it. All right, last one. Look at all the coaches in the NFC East. A lot to choose from here. As the season begins, which one do you think is under the most pressure?
I think this is easy. It's Nick Sirianni. I mean, if you believe like the scuttlebutt out of Philadelphia, he almost lost his job last season coming off of a damn near Super Bowl win. The issues that were plaguing them last year have been addressed with the coordinators, new coordinators in Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio on offense and defense. So if they do not have success this season, I don't think you can point the finger anywhere else but at the head coach, and I would assume that he'd be out of there.
It's an interesting one. In fact, I want to bring everyone in on it. Let me get Tim back in the conversation and Jeff Darlington as well. So, Tim, I'll start with you. Of the coaches in the NFC East, which one do you think is under the most pressure as the season starts?
I mean, I think it's Mike McCarthy. I mean, just look at the situation, the fact that he's basically a lame duck coach because of his contract, because of the other contract situations with star players. I think that's the hot seat. I mean, that was the hot seat. Felt like when the playoff loss to Green Bay happened last year, that seat was extremely hot. And I would say this: I think the fact that Bill Belichick is out there, people want to connect the dots to the Giants. I think it's easier to connect the dots with Belichick to Dallas than it is to New York in terms of, an owner being willing to, to bring someone like Belichick in. So, I think those are the factors that are huge in Dallas.
And I see that, Jeff, you're also going with Mike McCarthy. Go ahead.
Yeah, but I'd just like to make one point. You see three coaches on there in Sirianni, McCarthy, and Dable who might literally be 1, 2, and 3 when it comes to the hottest seats in the NFL, all within the same division. And the fourth guy in Dan Quinn is just in his first year, so maybe that's the reason he's not on a hot seat. With Mike Vrabel and, to Tim's point, Bill Belichick, both available, there has never been a worse time in the history of the NFL to be on the hot seat, and you've got three teams in the richest division in sports currently on that hot seat. I'm going to say Mike McCarthy, but I could honestly go with any of those three.
Well, that's the point. That's the reason that I went with Daboll, just because I wanted to make the point that it's a three-way tie, because I think all three of those coaches are a bad season away from getting fired. I think that Sirianni gets fired if the Eagles are bad. I think that McCarthy gets fired if the Cowboys are bad. And I think that Daboll gets fired if the Giants are bad. And the reason I went Daboll, and Tim, I'm interested to hear your thinking on this, is I have always been under the impression, I don't pretend to know Bill Belichick well. I've been around him a little, but I know people who know him well. He made his bones, if you will, in the New York Giants organization. Mm-hmm. That's his place. That's where he grew up. That's where he came up. He knows ownership there very well. I've always felt like, given his druthers, that would be the situation he would be most interested in. And that is one of the reasons that I pointed to that. Why do you think he'd be more interested in Dallas?
Yeah. I get it. He's friends with John Bon Jovi, so you're making the New Jersey connection.
Right.
Listen, here's what I would say too. I think the money could be astronomical in Dallas, and people can say what they want. It's not about the money or any of that stuff. It always is to a certain point. I think Jerry Jones at this stage of kind of his situation in Dallas and what they would want, I think that ends up being a stronger draw. That's what I think would happen. So listen, because there was a relationship, whatever that was, 25, 30 years ago, it does not mean that is, hey, I'm going to just go retrace my steps, back in the Meadowlands.
I get what Tim's saying, but I would say also the most important thing for Belichick is to break that record, I would assume. The money doesn't matter, and the team that gives you the chance to break that record is going to be one of those other teams. If the job became available, you had the choice between those 3 jobs. And what does he need, 14 wins? You can get 14 wins in 1 year with Dak Prescott or with Jalen Hurts and that Eagles team. You go to New York, you might be there for a little while if you're trying to break the all-time wins record.
That's possible. I mean, look, weird things happen, right? The NFL's a weird place, so all kinds of things that we expect to happen usually don't. We begin with this. Reporting coming out of San Francisco suggesting that the reigning NFC champion 49ers and one of their most important weapons, Brandon Aiyuk, may be on the verge of going their separate ways. Aiyuk has been in one of these ever-popular hold-ins. He has not been practicing with the team during training camp as he awaits a new contract. And then again, while you were asleep last night, new developments here. Our insider, Jeff Darlington, has the very latest. Jeff, what do the people need to know?
Well, this all started about 10:30 Eastern, Greeny, when Matt Maiocco, a longtime beat writer of the 49ers, reported that there are framework discussions with both the Patriots and the Browns about a trade for Brandon Aiyuk to one of those teams. Now, there's a lot to unpack here, including the fact that now our ESPN reporters have forwarded this story even further to point out that Brandon Aiyuk would still need to accept the terms of those contract offers from the Browns or the Patriots to make this happen. And whatever team he was willing to accept those contract offer from would need to be providing the type of compensation that the 49ers would agree to. So this is still very complicated. Could it happen? Could it happen? Absolutely. Could it happen today? Absolutely. This is a big moment in these discussions for this reason alone. The 49ers are in discussions, major discussions with multiple teams about a trade. That is something that is very different than it was at the start of training camp.
Absolutely. And we said at the time, Jeff, I remember we were having this conversation. This is going to come down to how hard Brandon Aiyuk is willing to push this. How difficult is he willing to make the situation for San Francisco? Certainly, it appears that he has done it enough that they are now actively involved in trade conversations. You said something earlier this morning, Jeff, by the way, for those just joining us, and let's underline the point he just made. There's 2 things that have to happen here. No team that gives up enormous amounts of compensation, anywhere near what the 49ers are going to want, are going to do that for a 1-year rental. Right. So they're going to only do it if they can then reach an agreement with Aiyuk on a new long-term contract. And so that's where he has to approve it. So he has, for all intents and purposes, a no-trade clause. So there's the 2 different pieces of this working together. Earlier this morning, Neek, Jeff said this is sort of like an early look at free agency. But in this way, it's not. Because when he becomes a free agent, then every team in the league can pay him whatever they want, and they don't have to give up compensation. He's a lot more expensive now because you're trading away, 2 number 2s or whatever it is, in addition to the contract.
It does seem interesting, though, because the 49ers, I feel like, will be less interested in draft picks and more interested in finding a replacement. Because as much as they may like Ricky Pearsall, he's not the same type of receiver. I think he's more of a Deebo Samuel type, jet sweep type of guy than a true X number 1. So that's what makes the Browns trade kind of interesting, because you could bring back someone that could replace him in this offense. And I find it really interesting that he's been allowed to put this amount of pressure on his team. And I think it's in part because they see that their Super Bowl window is right now and they don't want to miss this opportunity. So a player like this normally would go for a lot of draft picks because a team would be trying to replenish their roster. But for a team that's in win now mode, I think they're interested in signing a player that they could play now. And the last thing that I wanted to point out is why I think this is an inevitable trade is because the reports are coming out, and this is The reports are coming out on the San Francisco side that there are 2 teams in conversation. That sounds to me like a team that's ready to get the deal done, but wants the other 2 teams to understand, and their fan bases and all the pressure around them to understand that this deal is getting done soon. It's one of you 2 teams, so come with your best offer. Stop playing games. Let's get this deal done.
The Cleveland one is interesting. As Amari Cooper's name has been mentioned in some of this reporting, and he could be one of the pieces that goes back, and maybe that fills the hole that Aiyuk leaves behind. Tim Hasselbeck, what's your number one thought on this whole situation?
Yeah, the way you just described it, Greeny, is it's restricted free agency is really what it is. It's
right.
Okay, like you're asking for the moon, and so instead of us, trying to argue with you about, no, you're not worth that. Go see what the market tells you. Go ahead, go test it, go see, because we'll talk to these other teams, and when the contract that they're offering you, maybe isn't where we're willing to go with you, it ultimately helps get a deal done for San Francisco. So I also think this could be, a tactic, where it's coming out of 49ers camp to say, hey, yeah, okay, you can turn it down if it's not the deal that you want with a new team, and figure out what the best deal is that you can get with your current team.
Very quickly, let's just consider these options. Put him on Cleveland instead of Amari Cooper. This is a team that last year made the playoffs with Joe Flacco as their quarterback as the season went on. We have no idea what Deshaun Watson, I think, is ever going to be again. Maybe he recaptures some of his magic. It's totally unclear. They had the best defense in the league last year. So put Brandon Aiyuk on that team. What happens?
It's hard to predict, honestly. Like, I think that one of the most interesting parts of this trade is that Brandon Aiyuk is a player. All players are getting paid off of their potential. But he's a player who is going to get paid top of the league money off of potential more than anything else. It's normally some proven and some potential. And you could say that he's proven it with the advanced statistics and the per catch and per target numbers that he's put up. But it's an entire different circumstance when you are the X receiver. You're not in a system that we know to be pretty friendly to quarterbacks, where there are also a bunch of other incredible playmakers that requires the defense's attention. So this is still, while I think Brandon Aiyuk is great, it's still going to be a risky move to bring it in because he's never been the true X on a team where he's the number 1 option.
And then a very quick final word from you, Tim Hasselbeck, as anyone who is watching our show around draft time knows how much you believe in Drake May, who was the young quarterback in New England. And there is probably nothing better that could happen to a young quarterback than getting like a top flight receiver like this to work with. I mean, they've got all kinds of problems in New England and the offensive line and whatever else. But it'll be good for him, right?
Yeah. Oh, listen, that to me was always the spot. If it was like, hey, find the best spot for Brandon Aiyuk, it's New England, right? Everything that Nick just said in terms of, the offense and that. Listen, you go to New England, you're far and away the most dangerous player on that offense. Yeah. And now all of a sudden you're going to get targeted a bunch. I mean, you're going to end up with, 115 catches if you're a true number 1 wide receiver that goes to New England. So, and in terms of the development of the quarterback, I mean, everyone has said it. Look, it's a talent-deficient team in New England. If they're going to have success with Drake May, they got to put better players around him. And you can't just do it in the draft. It'll take too long.